What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie The Phoenician Scheme. Here's a quick synopsis. A business mogul, Jaja Corda, looks to reconnect with his estranged daughter. The film stars Benicio del Toro, Mia Threapleton, Michael Cera, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Scarlett Johansson, Richard Ayoade, Jeffrey Wright, Rupert Friend, and Benedict Cumberbatch. Standout performances. Most would describe Benicio del Toro as a supporting actor. He won Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars for Traffic and was nominated for 21 Grams. Other notable supporting turns include The Usual Suspects, Snatch, Sicario, and Inherent Vice. The Phoenician Scheme gives the actor a chance to give a rare leading performance. It's the actor's second movie with writer-director Wes Anderson, the first being The French Dispatch, which Del Toro was lights out in. In The Phoenician Scheme, he plays businessman Jaja Corda. Del Toro is so good in this movie, but I find it hard to call this one of the best performances of his career, given his pristine resume. With Corda, he gets to play this ruthless businessman who begins to feel his own mortality. Benicio del Toro has another big movie on the way in 2025, and that's One Battle After Another from writer-director Paul Thomas Anderson alongside Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn, and Regina Hall. So there's a couple of big reasons why everyone is hyped about that movie. For one, it's the first time that Paul Thomas Anderson is working with Leonardo DiCaprio. The other thing about that particular film is it is the most expensive film PTA has made to date, and so people want to see if he can become a more mainstream filmmaker. I mean, he is definitely, alongside Wes Anderson, viewed as one of the best directors working today. But his movies do not do great in movie theaters. Paul Thomas Anderson's highest grossing movie to date is There Will Be Blood, which made $76 million. One Battle After Another reportedly cost over $140 million. The big selling point to me is to see Leonardo DiCaprio share the screen with Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro. Those are three great actors who have all won Oscars. Getting back to The Phoenician Scheme, everyone, and I mean everyone, was excited to see Michael Cera finally work with Wes Anderson for the first time, and it did not disappoint. Now, this is a performance I do not want to spoil. All I will say is it's a real showcase of him as an actor, and I talked about that when I discussed the movie Sacramento. Michael Cera is really putting himself out there and showing his range as an actor. I always thought Cera was great, but he's definitely improved as a performer over the last few years. In The Phoenician Scheme, Cera plays Bjorn, who's hired by Corda as a tutor who later becomes his administrative assistant. And finally, this is the first movie I've seen Mia Threapleton in. She is the daughter of an Oscar winner, Kate Winslet. She's very good as Lisa, who is contemplating giving up becoming a nun to work with her father. Threapleton has great chemistry with both Del Toro and Cera. I like The Phoenician Scheme, and I think the best thing about it is the three central performances from Del Toro, Cera, and Threapleton. My main issue is that I don't think the rest of the star-studded cast was given anything to do, and that's a knock you hear about Anderson from time to time. Why do you need these big names popping up for a scene or two? And I don't always agree with that. In fact, in his last movie, Asteroid City, I absolutely loved every performance in it. Margot Robbie is in one scene, but it's arguably the best scene of the movie. Every single part served a purpose, and I didn't feel that way about The Phoenician Scheme. A movie filled with actors I love: Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Hanks, Riz Ahmed, Jeffrey Wright, and Scarlett Johansson, some of whom have done some of their best acting in past Wes Anderson movies. I just don't feel like Wes was all that interested in the side characters in this movie. And that's fair, but again, why are you having these side characters played by the likes of Bryan Cranston. Like, that's going to make me think he's going to have a bigger part. That's exactly how I felt about Benedict Cumberbatch. Yes, you could say he has a somewhat pivotal role in the plot, but acting-wise, I don't believe the Oscar-nominated actor was given anything interesting to do in this movie. When I feel like Wes Anderson is at his best, he picks the perfect role for an actor to play. Like, I absolutely enjoy every single time Edward Norton pops up in a Wes Anderson movie. Asteroid City, The French Dispatch. Like, yes, those are small roles, but he fits in so perfectly to the movie. I want to bring up the example of Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is brilliant in Asteroid City. It's one of my favorite recent Tom Hanks performances. I did not care for what he does in The Phoenician Scheme. Maybe that's just me. Maybe other people feel differently, but I think he wasted Tom Hanks in The Phoenician Scheme. And yes, rightfully so, everyone was pumped up to see Michael Cera in a Wes Anderson movie. I was equally pumped up to see Riz Ahmed show up in a Wes Anderson movie, and I don't think he was given a whole lot to do either. When you have great actors playing smaller roles, I'm going to judge them accordingly. I'm going to expect something special out of them, fair or unfair. For me, The Phoenician Scheme is the most topical movie of Wes Anderson's career. The world, as you know right now, is obsessed with the lives of rich individuals, and that's one of the things I struggle with when it comes to this movie. How does Wes Anderson feel about this lead character who is beyond rich, and maybe more importantly, how does he want me to feel about him? I don't want to spoil the movie, but the character gets a bit of a redemptive arc. At the end of the day, I know it's a movie, but isn't it fair to question whether a person can really have a change of heart about business and family? I know you don't go to a Wes Anderson movie expecting him to be cynical, but I think this movie comes off a little naive about the current situation we are in. That's why I find it so interesting that I found the movie to be topical, but I don't necessarily agree with what he's saying about this individual, the subject matter of his movie. So a few weeks ago on this podcast, I talked about the Jesse Armstrong movie Mountainhead and how Steve Carell is playing a billionaire who doesn't know how to deal with his own mortality. That feels more truthful to me than what Wes Anderson is doing in The Phoenician Scheme, where the message is this guy is going to change because it's the end of his life. He's going to realize how unimportant his money is and how important his family is. Now, we want that to be true, but how realistic is that? I don't think it is. That's why I think that the Mountainhead movie is coming from a more honest place than Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme. Unlike a lot of people, I don't think this is Wes Anderson just doing the same thing over and over again. It's been much discussed that this is his most violent movie. Again, what I'm struggling with is the hopeful message the movie is sending about its main character. Like, I just don't know if I can buy into that fully, and it's why I'm kind of struggling with this movie overall. And I just think that he wasted a lot of very good actors in this movie. You can look at Anderson's past work and see that he has a history of creating complex male characters. The ones that come to mind are Royal Tannenbaum, played by the late great Gene Hackman, and Steve Zissou, played by Bill Murray. It's my opinion that Anderson was far more judgmental of those characters than he is of Corda, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Those characters had somewhat of a redemptive arc, but you walk away from Steve Zissou also feeling like Wes Anderson knows this is a complicated character. The same about Tannenbaum. I don't really know how Wes Anderson feels about the character of Corda. Something you hear a lot with Steven Spielberg is that he gets judged against his prior films, which, as you know, his filmography is filled with all-time all-time great movies, and I'll be the first to admit that is what I am doing with Wes Anderson. The Phoenician Scheme is a very good movie. I just don't think it even comes close to touching his best films. And I would also like to state, I'm not someone who thinks that the early Wes Anderson movies are the only great ones. I really like The French Dispatch and was blown away by Asteroid City. One way I would put it is, the emotions from that movie resonated with me. I think this is just an example of not every movie from this director is going to work on me. There are plenty of people out there that like The Phoenician Scheme more than they liked Asteroid City. I'm just saying personally, I thought Asteroid City was one of the best movies of this director's career, and the follow-up just doesn't stack up against it. The way I am viewing Wes Anderson as he becomes more and more prolific, like he's making a movie almost every 2 years, is I am judging every single movie, where I feel like a lot of people are judging him as a whole right now. Like they're all looking at through the lens of his entire career. And I understand that because Wes Anderson has been around since the 90s. He's been here a while. We have such a rich history of him and his movies. We all know what a Wes Anderson movie looks and feels like. We know the people that he collaborates with the most. The Owen Wilsons, the Jason Schwartzmans, the Bill Murrays. It feels like there are two sets of Wes Anderson fans. There are the people who want him to revert back to what he was originally with Bottle Rocket and the movies that he co-wrote with Owen Wilson. Like they want a return to Rushmore, and it doesn't feel like that's going to happen. And then there are other people who want him to continue to evolve. I would describe myself as part of the latter. Like I like what Wes Anderson is doing. I like every single one of his movies. I love a lot of his movies. I do want to talk about the fact that he is making more and more movies at a faster pace, and I wonder if that makes people no longer get excited about his movies coming out. I mean, I see the same thing happen with Steven Soderbergh. Steven Soderbergh was a director who came up on the rise. He made Ocean's 11. He made Aaron Brockovich. He made Traffic. He's an all-time great director alongside Anderson, in my opinion. And yet, Soderbergh is making movies at such a pace that so many people don't even know when a new Steven Soderbergh movie comes out. And I wonder if the same thing is eventually going to happen to Wes Anderson. The Phoenician Scheme has done fairly well at the box office. It's made its budget back, but I do wonder if he's ever going to have a real big hit ever again. I would describe his big hit as The Grand Budapest Hotel. A lot of people saw that movie in movie theaters. That hit the zeitgeist in a way that you don't see from a lot of Wes Anderson movies. I guess what's different about me than most other people who follow the career of Wes Anderson is I'm never really up or down on him. He's just a constant figure. When he makes a movie, I need to see that movie. I am interested in the works of Wes Anderson, no matter where he's at in his career. I don't care if it's an up point, a down point. I don't care if the Oscars are recognizing him or not. I don't care if he's made a hit movie or not. If the name Wes Anderson has directed something, I want to watch that something, no matter what it is. This is now the third movie of his I've covered on this podcast. When he makes a movie, I make note, and I want to talk about it on this podcast, because whether or not I love or like the movie, there's always something interesting to talk about when it comes to the movies of Wes Anderson. Oscar chances. Now, we would all like to live in a world where there is a possibility of Michael Cera getting his first ever Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for his work in The Phoenician Scheme. Do I think we live in that world currently? I do not. For whatever reason, the Academy does not nominate performances from Wes Anderson movies. I really think they should have nominated Scarlett Johansson and Jason Schwartzman for their work in Asteroid City. And I don't think Anderson himself is getting nominated for Best Director or for The Phoenician Scheme same screenplay either. What I do gather from the reaction from this movie is that we will never again have an overall consensus about how we all feel about Wes Anderson movies, because we all want something different. Again, there are people who think he hasn't evolved, that he's doing the same thing over and over again, and then there are supporters of his saying he is doing new and exciting things, and I'm somewhere in the middle. I guess at the end of the day, what I want from Wes Anderson is for him not only to work with great stars, but to give those stars great parts, and in this case, he gave two of them in the Phoenician Scheme to Benicio del Toro and Michael Cera. I personally didn't feel like any of the other A-list actors were given anything interesting to do in the movie. That is my problem. Like, I thought Scarlett Johansson gave one of her career best performances in Asteroid City, and I felt like she was a bit of a dud in the Phoenician Scheme. And it's not about whether or not she was given a leading role or not. Like, plenty of people have made impacts in Wes Anderson movies in smaller roles. The name Adrian Brody comes to mind. He's great in the Grand Budapest Hotel, The French Dispatch, and Asteroid City with very little screen time. Maybe I should be putting more blame in the actors themselves, but I am more blaming Wes Anderson because I don't think he was interested in the supporting characters in the Phoenician Scheme. He is only interested in the three main characters played by Del Toro, Threapleton, and Cera. I mean, I wasn't even that impressed with Jeffrey Wright, who I thought was the absolute best thing about Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch. Like, he didn't even do anything for me in the Phoenician Scheme. I just don't think any of the supporting performances worked in this film. Having said all that, I can kind of understand why Anderson was so enthralled with the character of Corda, because it does feel like this is his grand statement on somebody who is uber wealthy and a mogul. Like, I think that Wes Anderson himself, in a way, knew he was making a movie more topical than he usually makes. It felt like he was making an entire movie around Benicio del Toro, and I get it, he's one of our great actors, this is a great part for him to play, but then why is he sharing the screen with Tom Hanks, who isn't given anything to do in the movie? Yes, there's a fun little basketball scene that I thought was amusing, but Tom Hanks was so good in Asteroid City, I was expecting way more in the follow-up, The Phoenician Scheme. I think if your favorite Wes Anderson movie is The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, then you are really going to like The Phoenician Scheme. That is the Wes Anderson movie I think has the most in common with The Phoenician Scheme. But one of the reasons I personally liked The Life Aquatic more so than I liked The Phoenician Scheme is because I think that The Life Aquatic was more cynical and was more judgmental of the characters in it. Even though The Phoenician Scheme is more violent, I find Steve Zissou to be a more edgier film. I would also like to state I have only seen The Phoenician Scheme one time. Maybe in the coming watches I will grow to like this movie more and more. But as of right now, I just don't put it up against those other great Wes Anderson movies. I think Moonrise Kingdom is better than it. Yes, it's fair to say I am holding Wes Anderson to a very high standard, but I believe he should be held to that standard because of his great filmography. And yes, most movies do not have three really good performances like The Phoenician Scheme, but when we're talking about filmmakers like Anderson or the Coen brothers, these are also movies that are filled with great supporting side characters, and I really do feel like that was ultimately lacking in The Phoenician Scheme. And maybe you could say the Grand Budapest Hotel has a similar issue. Like, that is a movie dominated by one great performance given by Ralph Fiennes. Tony Revolori is great in it. I also really like Adrian Brody and Willem Dafoe, but that is a movie where Anderson is is clearly interested in that one great character. But the execution of that movie's plot is just far more interesting, and that's why it's going to be remembered as one of Anderson's best movies, and I don't know how The Phoenician Scheme is ultimately going to be remembered. For now, I don't view it as a great Wes Anderson movie. I view it as a very good Wes Anderson movie, which at the end of the day still makes it better than most movies. The last thing I would like to say is that I really hope that great directors like Greta Gerwig and Wes Anderson continue to work with Michael Cera. He was a standout in both Barbie and The Phoenician Scheme. He's becoming a better actor, and he's still as funny as ever. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I recommend you check out The Phoenician Scheme. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about Danny Boyle's 28 Years Later, written by Alex Garland, starring Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Jack O'Connell, Alfie Williams, and Ralph Fiennes. So tune into that, and please rate, review, and subscribe.